What is the difference between a div and a span? Okay, we'll do a little coding to demonstrate the difference between these two HTML tags. It's quite simple. First thing we'll do is we'll open up our HTML file in our editor, and we'll come back to here in a moment, and we'll also get it open in a browser window. Okay, so here's our file in a browser window. There's not much going on. In fact, there's no content at all. And what we'll do here is we'll just write a little word so we can see, okay, there's our test. We can see where our content goes, and once again, the content always goes between the opening and closing body tags. Okay, let's do a little demonstration of a div and then a demonstration of a tag, and then we'll combine the two to illustrate the difference between these two very simple HTML elements. First, we'll do a div. A div tag always has an opening and a closing, so we'll do an opening div tag and then a closing div tag here. It would help if I spelled it correctly. Okay, so here's our opening and closing div tags, and here we'll put our little test. Go back to the browser, and it doesn't really look too much different. You'll start to see how a div behaves if we simply copy and make a second one, and we illustrate the difference between the two divs, and go back. And as you can see here, now we have our two lines of text, and what I hope is very obvious is that a div always creates a line break. It's a block element, and if we rearrange our code layout, although this should have absolutely no impact on the output to the browser, many people would look at something like this and think that this is all one line, which it absolutely is not. It has absolutely no effect on the browser output. The bottom line is what is contained in the opening and closing div tags is a block element, and when it's finished, it creates a new line. In the code, if I put another opening and closing div tag right next to it, it has no effect at all. It's still two different lines. So what happens if we want to create two elements that occupy the same line? That's where a span comes into play. We'll leave our test div up there, and we'll create a span. Once again, the span, just like the div, takes opening and closing tag, and here's our span tag, and we'll go like this. Now it's interesting. At first, we'll notice that there are two lines here, so the assumption is kind of like that a span creates another line, but actually it does not. And we'll notice that by creating another span, copy this one, paste it here, and we'll just change the text here. And you'll notice that when we refresh, the second span tag occupies the same line as the first span tag, even though in our code we've got two different lines here. And that's because the code has nothing to do with the output. It's just the way the code looks. The bottom line is a span tag does not create a new line break. One might say, well, why couldn't you just put both of these in the same span tag? And you could. But another approach is if you wanted to style these differently. For example, let's just say the first one, we wanted to make the text bold. So we could say style and go back here, and there's our bold text right here, whereas the second set of text is not bold. So what you see here is two different containers. The first container is the first span tag, and we've styled it bold, and the second container is another span tag which we have not styled bold, but they both occupy the same line. So the purpose of a span is to create containers of content or text that will be handled differently but remain on the same line. And the purpose of a div is to create a container that, when completed, creates a new line or a new block. So just to illustrate once again, here's two divs, and here's two spans. And when we go to look at the final output, you can see the div always creates a new line, but the the span tags do not create line breaks and exist on the same line until you break the line manually. Divs always take opening and closing tags, as do spans, and once again divs create line breaks, spans do not. So, in a nutshell, that is the difference between a div and a span tag.